I'm going to show you how I budget my money based on my incomings and outgoings that I had when I lived in a rented flat. So I'll pop the spreadsheet up so you can see it. So here we've got my budgeting template that I use to manage my finances, and I can see each month what's coming in, what's going out. You can get your hands on this template. I will leave a link in the description below, but I'll show you how I enter all my income and expenses. So first of all, in the top, in the green, it's got your income. So that's your salary or any side hustles that you have that bring in money. So when I was living in the flat, I was earning 1,611 and 10 pence every month. So that was monthly. So I will drag that along for each month. So at the top it says 2021, but this is based on money that I was earning when I lived in a flat. At the time I didn't have any side hustles, so I'm not going to put them in, and that was it. That was the only money that I had coming in, so I'm going to move on to the expenses now. So living expenses, we paid rent. Our rent was quite good, it was 250, and it was monthly, so I'll drag that along. This running total down at the side tells you how much you're spending on that item per year, which is quite scary if you look at all your expenses. Next we've got council tax. So that was 120, and again we actually paid this monthly. I know you can pay, I think, 10 months at a time and then you have a break, or 11 months and you have a break, but we paid monthly. Then gas and electric, we were £80. We were really expensive in the little flat. And we actually got a rebate at the end because we paid too much on our electricity, which was nice. Next is broadband, phone and TV. We only paid £20 on this because we didn't actually have a TV package at that time. We just used Netflix, so we didn't have a TV license either. So we paid £20 a month. Then my phone was only £21 because I had that phone for years. So £21 a month. Food, we used to budget about £200 each for food every month. And then childcare, we didn't have any children, so we did not pay childcare. Next is travel expenses. So petrol, I do drive, so I was about £50, went through about a tank of petrol a month, so £50 on a tank. Car permit, I didn't pay this, but my partner did, so I will leave that. Car insurance at the time for me was about £34 a month. So I'll drag that along. I didn't have a car payment because I had bought my car outright. Next is car tax, which was about £17 a month. And then I didn't use public transport because I had a car. Next is subscriptions. So I didn't have Spotify, but my partner paid for it, so I will leave that out of my expenses. I did have Netflix though. I think it's £8.99, but I'll just put £9 for easiness. So I was £9 a month for Netflix. And I also did have a gym membership at that time, which was about £22 per month. That was one of the things that I cut out when we were looking to buy a house because I wasn't using it at all. Next is insurance expenses. We didn't actually pay any of these. These are more for when you have bought a house. So because we were renting the flat, we didn't have to pay for any of these. So all of these will remain at zero. Debts, credit card debts and student loans. So I didn't have a credit card debt. I do have a credit card, but I only used it at that time to build up a credit score because I didn't have a very good credit score because everything that I owned was bought outright. My car was bought outright, my phone was bought outright, so I had a really bad credit score. So I wasn't paying off any credit card debt. What I was doing is I would use it to pay my petrol each month, and then straight away I would pay it off, just to show that I am okay with money. Student loan, that actually comes out of my wage before I get my wage, so I will leave that blank. I know it can vary from country to country how you pay off your student loans, but that already comes off before I get my wage each month. Next is personal expenses. So socialising, about £100 I would leave myself, and also spending money for anything else was £100. I'm leaving clothes zero because I don't really actually buy that many clothes. That would come under my spending money if ever I needed to buy myself new clothes. And then on to the savings. First thing in the savings category is an emergency fund. Now, we didn't have one of these when we lived in the flat, but we're trying to build up one now that we've bought a house. The reason it's so important to have an emergency fund is it enables you to have the money to pay for things that are unexpected. So if you do own a house, for example, house repairs, such as if the boiler goes or you need a roof repair or something like that, something that's unexpected and quite pricey, that's when you would use your emergency fund. Also, the current situation has put this one into perspective for a lot of people, is if you lose your job. So an emergency fund, depending on what website you're looking at, it suggests that you should have 3 to 6 months worth of expenses saved up, or some websites say 3 to 6 months worth of income saved up. So I would say if you're starting an emergency fund, start with a target of 3 months worth of expenses, because 6 months worth of income is quite a hefty amount. So I'm leaving that blank because in the flat we didn't have one and weren't putting money towards one. Next was a house fund. So after living in the flat for a while, we did decide we wanted to buy a house, and we did start saving towards a house fund. And I think at the time I was saving about £400. So I'll drag that along. Now this part at the bottom, the yellow, that calculates your surplus or your deficit. So that's your money left over, or if it's a negative number, that's how much you've gone over budget by. So at the end of each month, with these expenses and this income, I'm looking at having £188 left over. Now what I would do with that at the time was I wouldn't allocate it to anything. I would just use it as a buffer. So if I had spent more than my £100 on spending money or socialising, that's okay because I've got this £188 buffer. At the end of the month, once I get my pay for the next month, anything that I had left over, I would then put into my savings account. Now you do get more advanced budgets. They're called zero-based budgets, and they account for every single penny that you're bringing in each month. So at the end, in this surplus deficit section, it should be zero because you've allocated every single penny that you make to a specific expense or savings account. I'm not a budget expert. I use this budget template where I can see where all my expenses are, I can see where all my savings are, and I can see that I have money left over at the end. What I also do with this budget template is that's me drawing up my budget for the entire year, but if I click on this tab, I can then fill in exact money that I spend each month. So for example, I would fill in my salary exactly the same. I would fill in all my bills the same because they generally don't change. Now, food is one that does change. So depending on the month, I would be able to tally up, looking at my banking app, I'd be able to tally up how much I'd spent on food that month, and I could enter it in here to see if I am sticking to my £200 budget. Also with petrol, I could look at my petrol purchase for that month and type that in and see if I'm sticking to budget. So for example, one month I might spend £40, the next month I might have only spent £35, etc. My car insurance would stay the same. I think that was 34, and my car tax would stay the same. My subscriptions would be the same. But my socialising might be different depending on what I've done that month, or depending on the month, or depending on the global situation. So my socialising might have only been £50 one month, or the next month it might be more, it might be £120. And same with clothing and spending money. I'd type in what I'd actually spent. And you can do this just by having a banking app on your phone and seeing where your transactions are for that month. Now you would also put in your savings. A really good idea if you are planning to save up for something is to set up a standing order into your savings account so that that comes off straight away before you see your money, if you know what I mean. So your wage gets paid into your account, and then straight away your savings come off and go into the savings account, so you can't touch them. Once you input all your actual spending for that month, you then have a realistic amount left over, and you can decide to allocate that to savings account or something else. So for example, with this I've got 228 left over the first month. I might want to put 200 of that into an emergency fund. And the same the next month, I've got £178 left over, so I might want to put 150 of that into an emergency fund. So like I said at the beginning, having a budget is really good for making sure you've always got money to pay for things that you need and pay for things that are important.